Part 1. The Invitation. The rain fell on New York in slick, endless sheets, the kind that made the neon lights of the city bleed into the asphalt. It was a Tuesday. For John Wick, it was just another day of quiet, a fragile piece he'd paid for in blood and bullets. His dog, the pit bull with no name, lay at his feet, its head resting on his boots. The silence in his stark, modern house was a fortress, but fortresses, as John knew better than anyone, were made to be breached. It didn't start with a bang. It started with a hum, a low, electric drum that vibrated through the concrete floor. The dog lifted its head, a low growl rumbling through space. John's hand was already on the pistol tucked into the back of his jeans. The hum grew, and then the lights in the house flickered and died, plunging the room into the gray twilight of the sky. Outside, a black car, something long and armored like a government hearse, had pulled up to his curb. It had no license plates. The knock on his door was firm, precise. Not police, not assassins, something else. John walked to the door, his movements fluid, silent. The dog stayed put, trained to obey the unspoken command. He looked through the peephole. A man in a flawlessly tailored black suit stood on his porch, holding a black umbrella. He was older, with sharp gray hair and the kind of eyes that didn't just look at you, but through you, assessing every possible angle. John opened the door. "You're a long way from home," he said, his voice a low growl. The man smiled, a thin, professional expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Wick, my name is Thaddeus Thorne. May I come in? This is not a conversation for the rest." John didn't answer, simply stepping back to let him pass. Thorne folded his umbrella with a crisp snap and stepped inside. He didn't look around or comment on the decor. He looked at John. "I'm not looking for work," John said, closing the door. "This isn't work, Mr. Wick. Not in the way you understand it." Thorne replied, his voice calm, measured. "I represent an organization. Let's call it Aegis. We operate on a level above governments, above corporations, and, as it happens, above institutions like your high table." John's expression didn't change, but a flicker of cold interest registered in his eyes. Mentioning the high table was a specific, calculated move. "The world is bigger than you think," Thorne continued. "There are anomalies, individuals with capabilities that defy explanation. We call them assets. The public calls them superheroes." John remained silent, his posture relaxed but ready. He'd heard whispers, seen blurry news reports of beings who could fly, who could level buildings with a glance. He'd always dismissed it as noise, irrelevant to his world. For the most part, we manage them. We contain the threats they face. But a new problem has emerged. A man who calls himself Silence. He isn't an asset. He's something worse. He has technology that allows him to control people. Not with words or money, but by rewriting their biology on a cellular level with humans. He turns ordinary citizens into puppets, extensions of his will. They are strong, fast, and feel no pain. They operate with a hive mind, a perfect tactical network. "Sounds like you need a soldier," John said flatly. "We have soldiers," Thorne countered. "We have assets. We have a man who can bench press a pen and a woman who can disappear in plain sight. We have a young man who can tear holes in reality. They are cameras, Mr. Wick. Against Silence, we need a scalpel. His puppets are still people. Mothers, fathers, children. Our assets cause collateral damage. They break things. We need someone who can move through a city of hostiles without leveling. Someone with an unparalleled tactical mind, who understands that the target isn't always the one making the most noise. We need a ghost who can get to the puppeteer." Thorne paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "We've studied you, John. Your focus, your commitment, your sheer will. When you were sent to kill 3 men in a bar, you didn't just kill them. You used their environment, their assumptions, their own movement to do it. You were efficient, surgical. That is what we need." John walked over to the window, looking out at the black car. "The answer is no. I'm out." "Are you?" Thorne asked, his tone hardening slightly. "You have a ceasefire with the high table, a temporary truce. A peace you enjoy because the world beneath the world agrees to leave you alone. But Silas doesn't operate in that world. He's coming for it all. He sees the order, the rules of your society, and he wants to burn it down to install his own. Your peace is an illusion, and it's about to be shattered." As if on cue, John's phone buzzed. A secure line, a number he hadn't hadn't seen in years. It was Winston. He answered. John, Winston's voice was strained and urgent. The Continental. It's under attack. Not assassins. Something else. They move together. They don't die easy. John could hear gunfire in the background. The heavy, unfamiliar reports of advanced weapons. He hung up without a word, his gaze shifting to Thorn. The old man hadn't moved. He's making a point, Thorn said quietly, forcing my hand. And yours. This is a test, John stated. It wasn't a question. Yes, Thorn agreed. And it's live. Lightning is 2 minutes out. They'll handle the perimeter. But they can't enter the hotel. Consecrated ground. Even Silas's puppets seem to honor that. They're holding the lobby, waiting. But Sharon has been compromised. Silas is using him to try and deactivate the hotel's charge. Your world is about to be set on fire, John. Unless you go in there and put it out. John looked down at his dog. He then walked to a section of his concrete floor and pulled it up, revealing a small arsenal laid out in clean foam. He didn't pick up an assault rifle or shotgun. He selected a Taran tactical combat rifle, extra magazine, and a P-30L with a compensator. He checked the action on both. Smooth. Perfect. He looked at Thorn. I go in. I get Sharon. I stop the attack. Then you and your circus leave me alone. Thorn gave a slight nod. Resolve the situation, Mr. Wick. Then we'll discuss your terms. John walked to the door, the dog trotting at his heels. He gave the dog a soft pat on the head. Stay. The dog sat, watching him with intelligence. As John stepped out into the rain, heading for his own car, a black 1969 Mustang Mach-E, he saw Thorn's team arrive. It wasn't a SWAT unit. It was 3 figures. One was a mountain of a man in dark tactical armor, radiating pure strength. The second was a woman who seemed to flicker at the edge of his vision, a ghost in the night. The third was a younger man whose hands crackled with an unstable blue energy. The hammers. John ignored them. He got in his car and tore off into the night. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a soldier. He was the man you sent to kill the Boogeyman. And it looked like the Boogeyman had a new name. Part 2. The Proving Ground. The street in front of the Continental was a war zone, but a strangely silent one. Cars were overturned, storefronts shattered, but there was no screaming, no chaos. Just the steady rain and the eerie sight of dozens of people standing perfectly still in the street, their eyes glowing with a faint green light. They were Silas's puppets, a perimeter of sentinels. As John's Mustang roared down the block, they turned in perfect unison, their movements synchronized and unnatural. He didn't slow down. He drove straight at them. At the last second, the crowd parted, a fluid, calculated maneuver to let him pass. They weren't trying to stop his car. They were letting him in. A trap. John knew it. He pulled the e-brake, spinning the car 180 degrees, and slammed to a halt right in front of the hotel entrance. He was out of the car before it stopped rocking, pistols in hand. The 3 assets were already there, holding him out of the way. The big one, who John heard Thorn call Vanguard, had ripped a wrench first out of the sidewalk and was using it like a baseball bat, sweeping puppets aside. The woman, Nix, moved between the shadows of the alleyways, a blur of motion that ended with puppets dropping to the ground, unconscious. Breach was the problem. Heat was bolts of raw energy that exploded with concussive force, but his control was sloppy. One of his shots went wide, vaporizing the newsstand and a chunk of the building behind him. Watch your fight. Vanguard yelled, his voice a command. John ignored the all. He walked up the steps to the Continental's grand entrance. The doors were closed. He knew they'd be locked down. Through the reinforced glass, he'd seen the lock. It was filled with more puppets, all of them hotel staff, and bellhops and waiters, all standing motionless. And in the center, standing before the main desk, was Sharon. His normally stoic face was blank, his eyes glowing with that same dead blue light. He was typing at a console, systematically deconstructing the Continental's ancient protections. John raised his pistol, but he didn't shoot the glass. He shot the electronic lock next to the door. A precise double tap. Sparks flew, and the maglock disengaged with ease. He pushed the heavy doors open and stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the puppets in the lobby snapped to life. They didn't scream or charge wildly. They moved with a chilling purpose to swarm intelligence. A waiter lunged with a corkscrew. A bellhop swung a luggage cart like a battery. The concierge pulled a ceramic knife from her uniform. This was John's world. Close quarters. Multiple threats. Pure reaction. He didn't waste a movement. A shot to the waiters, Lee sent him tumbling, disrupting the path of the man behind him. He sidestepped the luggage cart, using its momentum to spin it into a group of three others, creating a momentary barrier. The concierge with the knife got close. He didn't shoot. He grabbed her wrist, twisted, and used her own body as a shield against another attack. Disarming her in the same fluid motion before a sharp round to the base of her skull sent her slumping to the floor, unconscious but alive. He was a whirlwind of controlled violence. Center axis relock, two to the chest, one to the head to disable, not kill. He wasn't assassinating them. He was dismantling the machine. He saw their attack patterns, the way they moved as one, and exploited it. He broke their lines, forced them into each other's paths, turned their perfect coordination into a liability. From outside, the three assets watched on a tablet next to his helmet, which showed the hotel's internal security. He's efficient, Nick stated, her voice a filtered, electronic whisper. No wasted energy. He's treating it like a math problem. He's a killer, Vanguard grunted, deflecting a thrown parking meter. That's all he is. No, Breach said, his voice shaky as he held his crackling energy in check. Look, he's not killing them. He's just turning them off. Inside, John was closing in on Sharon. The concierge was still twitching, still fighting, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Only two puppets were left standing between them, both large security guards. They were stronger than the others. They charged. John dropped to one knee, sliding across the polished marble floor. He shot one guard in the hip, changing his trajectory so he collided with the other. As they stumbled, John was back on his feet, closing the distance. He holstered one pistol and drew a knife. He moved past them, a blur of black cloth and steel. It was over in a second. Hamstring on one, brachial artery on the other's arm to induce shock. Both went down hard. He was at the desk. Sharon, he said, his voice low. The concierge didn't respond. His fingers kept typing. The final override protocol was seconds from being entered. John couldn't shoot the console. It would trigger a catastrophic security failure. He couldn't just knock Sharon out. The nanites might keep his body going. He looked at Karen's hands. The nanites gave them speed and precision, but they still followed the rules of human anatomy. John saw the pattern, the rhythm of the typing. He took a breath, and then he acted. He didn't strike Karen's head. He struck his hands. With surgical precision, his knuckles rapped against the metacarpal bones of both of Karen's hands. A sharp, stunning blow, not enough to break, but enough to trigger a massive nerve disruption. Karen's fingers locked up, spasming uncontrollably. The typing stopped. An error message flashed on the screen. John grabbed Sharon and pulled him away from the desk, laying him on the ground. As he did, the blue glow in Karen's eyes flickered and died. Outside, all the puppets in the street collapsed in unison, as if their strings had been cut. Silence. John stood up, breathing steadily. He reloaded his pistol with a fresh magazine. The front doors opened. Vanguard, Nix, and Breach walked in, surveying the scene. The lobby was a mess of unconscious bodies, but no one was dead. Vanguard looked at John, his expression unreadable. Thorne was right. You're a scalpel. I did the job, John said, turning to leave. We're done. No, we're not. Nix's voice cut through the air. She was holding her tablet up. On the screen was a live satellite feed of a chemical plant in New Jersey. While we were here, Silas hit another target. He just vented 3 tons of anhydrous ammonia into the air. He's creating a smokescreen. For what? We don't know. Thorne's voice came through a comm link in Vanguard's ear, loud enough for John to hear. The test is over, Mr. Wick. This is the reality. Silas doesn't stop. He escalates. He used the Continental to distract us, to measure our response. And to measure you. John stopped. He looked at the unconscious bodies on the floor, people who were puppets moments ago. He looked at Sharon, his loyal friend, who was slowly beginning to stir. This was an enemy he couldn't just shoot. This was a poison that was spreading. His peace, his quiet, wouldn't mean a thing if the world outside his door was burning. What's the offer? John asked, his voice cold as steel. Thorne's voice replied, full resources of Aegis. Anything you need. Your record, your past with the high table, wiped clean. A permanent sanctuary. And a chance to end this. To cut the head off the snake. John was silent for a long moment. My house. My car. They are not to be touched. And my dog is coming with me. There was a brief pause on the comms. Then, Thorne's voice, with a hint of what might have been amusement. Agreed, Mr. Wick. Welcome to the team. Part 3. The Ghost and the Machine. Aegis headquarters wasn't a building. It was a scar on the earth, a subterranean facility hidden beneath a decommissioned dam in the Pacific Northwest. John's Mustang was parked in a sterile garage next to a sleek, matte black jet. His dog was in a spacious, custom-built kennel that Nix had designed, complete with a live feed to a tablet John now carried. He'd insisted. The dog was his anchor. The team dynamic was tense. Vanguard, whose real name was Cole, saw John as a necessary evil, a killer whose leash they now held. He was a soldier, a man of honor, and John's methods were a shade of gray he wasn't comfortable with. Breach, the kid named Leo, was afraid of John. He'd seen the casual, brutal efficiency in the hotel, and it spooked him. Leo fought to control his power. John seemed to have a perfect, terrifying control of his own violence. Only Nix, real name Eva, seemed to understand. Her specialty was information, patterns, and psychology. She saw John not as a blunt instrument, but as a master of a dying craft. They spent hours in the briefing room, a place of holographic maps and intelligence feeds, and it was there John began to prove his worth beyond his guns. Silas has gone dark, Thorne said, his image projected onto the main table. The chemical plant was a feint. He stole nothing. He left no physical trace. He's a ghost. Every ghost leaves a trail, John said, looking at the map. It showed the locations of Silas's attacks. A bank data center, the Continental, the chemical plant. They don't seem random. They seem like probes. He's testing defenses. Electronic, physical, and unconventional. He tapped the Continental icon. This was about me. He wanted to see me work. Why? Cole asked, arms crossed. What's so special about you? He's building a profile. Eva cut in, pulling up data streams. He's an information broker. His nanites don't just control people, they gather data. Sights, sounds, biometrics. He's learning how we fight. He knows you'll use brute force, Cole. He knows Leo is a wild card. He knows I'll attack his network. But John is an analog threat in a digital world. He's unpredictable. So how do we find him? Leo asked, nervously flexing his hands. We don't look for him, John said. We look for his supply chain. This technology, the nanites, it isn't magic. It needs rare earth metals, advanced processors, a biological medium. He needs suppliers. People who don't ask questions. My people. Thorne gave a curt nod on the screen. Proceed. For the next 48 hours, John Wick went to work. He didn't use Aegis databases or satellite surveillance. He used a single, encrypted burner phone. He made 3 calls. The first was to a sommelier in Rome, asking about shipments of unlabeled vintages. The second was to a tailor in Hong Kong, inquiring about a specific bolt of silk that was bullet-resistant. The third was to a man known only as the Bowery King, asking about the flocks of new pigeons in the city. It was code, a language of the underworld that Eva's algorithms couldn't decipher, but it yielded results. Whispers. A black market transaction of medical-grade centrifuges. A massive power draw from a supposedly abandoned subway station in Chicago. A shipment of beryllium processors that went missing from a port in Seattle. Eva took the fragments and worked her magic. She cross-referenced the data, running simulations, connecting the dots. He's building something, she said, pointing to a 3D schematic that was slowly resolving on the screen. A broadcast antenna, not for radio waves, for a biological signal. He's planning to release his nanites on a massive scale. The location was the abandoned subway station in Chicago. It's a fortress, Cole said, looking at the layout. Single entry point, reinforced tunnels. He'll have the whole station rigged with his puppets. We go in hard and fast, Leo said, his eyes glowing faintly. I can blast a new entrance. No, John said, his voice stopping them both. That's what he expects. A frontal assault. He'll flood the tunnels with civilians. You'll be bogged down fighting puppets while he finishes his work. He walked to the holographic table and zoomed in on the station's blueprints. You'll be the distraction. Make a lot of noise at the main entrance. Draw his attention. I'm not going in through the tunnels. He pointed to a small, insignificant detail on the map. A storm drain. An old, forgotten service conduit from the 1930s. It's a 100-year-old pipe, Cole said, skeptical. It could be collapsed. It's not on any modern city plans, John stated. He won't be watching it. The plan was set. Cole and Leo would lead a loud, visible assault on the station's main entrance. Eva would provide cyber support, fighting Silas for control of the station's systems. John would go in alone through the drain. The Chicago night was cold. John, dressed in his black suit, slipped into the sewer system without a sound. The journey was through muck and darkness, a world away from the clean, high-tech halls of Aegis. He moved with a relentless pace, guided only by a small map on his wrist device. Above ground, the battle began. Cole was a wrecking ball, tearing through barricades. Leo's energy blasts lit up the night sky. The puppets swarmed them, a tide of controlled bodies. It was exactly what John had predicted. He found the conduit. It was a tight squeeze, a rusty, claustrophobic tube. He crawled for what felt like miles, his suit getting torn and filthy. Finally, he emerged through a grate into a small maintenance closet deep inside the station. He could hear the battle raging floors above. He was behind enemy lines. The lower levels were quiet, patrolled by only a few puppets. He moved through the shadows, a specter of death. He was in his element. He encountered a two-man patrol. Before they could send a single neural alert, it was over. A knife to the throat of one, a suppressed pistol shot to the head of the other. Quick, clean, silent. He found the control center. It was a vast, open cavern, the station's old central hub. In the middle, a massive antenna was being assembled, glowing with an eerie blue energy. And standing before the controls, overseeing the work, was a man in a simple gray suit. Silas. He was just a man. No glowing eyes, no superpowers. But he wasn't alone. Surrounding him were 10 figures. They wore black tactical gear, and they moved with a grace and deadliness that the other puppets lacked. They were professionals, soldiers or assassins, before Silas had taken them. His honor guard. Silas turned, as if sensing John's presence. A calm smile played on his lips. "Mr. Wick," he said, his voice amplified by the cavern's acoustics. "I was wondering when the scalpel would arrive. You see, the hammers outside were for them. These are for you." The 10 figures turned in unison, drawing advanced weaponry. John Wick stood in the shadows, a single pistol in his hand. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and deep in the heart of the enemy's lair. He calmly ejected the magazine from his pistol, checked the rounds, and slammed it back into place. The fight had just begun. Part 4, The Will of One. The 10 elite puppets didn't charge. They fanned out, taking cover behind pillars and machinery, moving with the practiced efficiency of a spec ops team. They laid down a blistering field of suppressive fire. Bullets chewed up the concrete where John had been standing moments before. But he was already gone, a phantom melting back into the industrial shadows of the cavern. This wasn't like the Continental. These weren't civilians. They aimed for the head. They used flanking maneuvers. They communicated without a sound, their tactics perfectly synchronized through Silas's neural link. John was pinned down behind a massive, rusted generator. "You can't win, Mr. Wick." Silas's voice boomed. "I've studied you. I know you prefer CQC. I know you reload with religious precision. I know you are just a man. What can one man do against a god?" A bullet ricocheted inches from John's head. He had to change the equation. He couldn't outshoot them all in a direct firefight. He had to hunt them. He broke from cover, not running towards them, but away, deeper into the machinery that lined the cavern. 2 of the puppets broke off to follow him. They were confident, moving into the darkness after him. That was their mistake. They were entering his world now. The first one rounded a corner and found nothing. He paused for a microsecond. In that instant, John dropped from the pipes above. He landed on the puppet's shoulders, a knife plunging down into the junction of neck and shoulder, severing the spinal cord. The puppet dropped without a sound. The second one heard the muffled thud and spun around. John was already there, his pistol up. A controlled pair of shots to the puppet's chest sent him stumbling back. It didn't kill him, but it gave John the opening he needed. He closed the distance, grabbed the puppet's rifle, and slammed the stock into his face. He then used the man's own body as a shield, walking him back out into the open. "Eva, can they see through each other's eyes?" John muttered into his comms. "Affirmative." Eva's voice replied instantly. "It's a shared visual network." "Good." The remaining 8 puppets saw their comrades stumbling towards them, a gun to his head. They hesitated. That was all John needed. He shoved the puppet forward, and opened fire from behind his cover. He wasn't aiming to kill. He was aiming for their weapons. Sparks flew as bullets struck rifles, causing two of the puppets to drop their primary arms. Chaos. He had introduced a single, unpredictable element into their perfect system. From above, the sounds of battle changed. A massive explosion rocked the cavern. A new hole had been blasted in the ceiling, and through it, Vanguard dropped like a meteor, landing with a ground-shaking thud. Leo hovered behind him, crackling with energy. The distraction was over. Silas is mine. John yelled into the comms. Vanguard nodded, turning his attention to the remaining puppets. We'll clear the room. The cavern erupted into a full-scale battle. Vanguard was a force of nature, throwing puppets through concrete walls. Leo's energy bolts streaked across the room. John ignored it all. His focus was on one man. Silas. Silas hadn't flinched. He simply turned back to his console and increased his pace. A countdown appeared on the main screen, 60 seconds. John sprinted, weaving through the firefight. He vaulted over a control panel, slid under a burst of plasma fire from a puppet sidearm, and kept moving. 45 seconds. Two more of the elite guards moved to intercept him. He didn't have time for takedowns. He shot one in the knee, the other in the shoulder, disabling them without breaking stride. 30 seconds. He was 10 feet away from Silas. The last guard, a man bigger than Vanguard, stood in his way. The giant swung a pipe like a club. John was too close to dodge, so he didn't. He ran straight at him, lowering his shoulder. At the last second, he dropped, sliding between the giant's legs. As he came up behind him, he fired 2 rounds directly into the back of his knees. The giant roared and crumpled. 15 seconds. John was at the console. Silas turned to face him, a small, strange smile on his face. He held a small device in his hand, a dead man's switch. Even if you stop the broadcast, this will activate, Silas said calmly. It will fry the neural networks of every puppet I've created. Thousands of people across the country. Their brains will turn to soup. Your choice, Mr. Wick. Let me create a world of perfect order, or condemn all these people to death. John looked at the countdown. 5 seconds. He looked at Silas's hand on the switch. He looked into the eyes of a man who believed he was a savior. He didn't shoot Silas. He didn't lunge for the console. He shot the console. A single, perfectly placed round from his pistol tore through the main power conduit at the base of the machine. Sparks erupted. The screen went black. The countdown vanished. The antenna powered down with a dying whine. And all around the room, every puppet, including the elite guards, simply stopped moving and collapsed, the blue light in their eyes fading to nothing. Silas looked at the dead console, then at John, his face a mask of disbelief. What have you done? I made a choice, John said. He stepped forward and, with a single, sharp blow, knocked the switch from Silas's hand, crushing it under his heel. He hit Silas once, a hard right cross that sent the man to the floor, unconscious. The fight was over. In the aftermath, Aegis agents flooded the station, securing Silas and tending to the recovering civilians. The team stood together, watching. You could have killed him, Cole said, looking at John. There was a newfound respect in his voice. It would have been easier. Easier isn't always right, John replied, his voice flat. They returned to the Aegis facility. Thorne was waiting for them in person. Silas is in custody. His network is being dismantled. You have done the world a great service, Mr. Wick. Your place here is permanent, should you choose to accept it. John looked at the high-tech command center, at the assets, who were now his teammates. He saw Cole give him a respectful nod. He saw Leo offer a small, hesitant smile. He saw Eva looking at him, an analytical but appreciative gleam in her eyes. This was a new world, a new war. He could be a part of it. He simply shook his head. I have a dog to feed. He turned and walked away, heading for the garage. He didn't look back. An hour later, he was back in his house in New York. The rain had stopped. The house was clean, quiet. His dog trotted up to him, nudging his hand. John knelt down, scratching the dog behind the ears. He was out. Again. But he knew, with a certainty that was as solid as the gunmetal in his weapons case, that his peace was temporary. The world was bigger now, filled with bigger monsters. And sometimes, to kill a monster, you needed someone who was better at being the boogeyman than they were. His phone, a new one given to him by Aegis, sat on the counter. He knew it would ring again one day, and he knew he would answer.